Hello, welcome back to my podcast. I'm Suni and I'm here to share with you about all of the creative things that I've been up to this week. There's quite a lot to get through in this episode. I have a few finished objects from knitting, and then I've also just come back from the New England Made trade show, so I have quite a bit to talk about that, and some acquisitions, and what else? I'm wearing the Foxy Step sweater. I still haven't decided what to do with the neck, but I've been rolling it down. I do think I'll have to seam it down though, because sometimes it kind of like pops up like this. But this has now been blocked and I've been wearing it. It's relaxed quite a bit. And, I know what I was gonna say. So, sort of a housekeeping-ish thing. I read all of the comments that you leave. Thank you so much for all of your feedback and words of encouragement or ideas and suggestions. It's really helpful. And one of the ones that I got is saying like, hey, it would be really helpful if you could put images on the screen of what you're talking about. So at the time of filming right now, I don't know how to do that, but my goal is that in editing this video, I will have images on the screen for you to see and have some sort of a sense of what I'm talking about. So we'll see how I do on that, and if it doesn't happen, this one, next one. But I'm going to be going forth talking about things as if you can see the images. So hopefully that's not terrible. All right, anyway, I do want to have images. I think that it's going to be really helpful in talking about the projects that I'm working on or patterns and everything else. So look forward to that. If it doesn't happen this time, next time, I'm still learning. And honestly, this podcast is like a very casual experience for me, and I don't want to go too overboard and make it into some type of work that doesn't feel authentic for me. And I've never been a video editor, so authentic to me is learning as I go. Anyway, all that said, I'm going to have photos in the videos sooner than later, and we'll see what happens with that. Okay, so now I have no idea what I was talking about. I think this podcast is going to become less and less formal through the ages, but that's okay. I think that's probably gonna work better for me. All right, let's start with knitting this week because it's going to be a shorter segment, and then I can get into the trade show and just go from there. So first thing, as I said, I'm wearing my Foxy Step sweater. It's by Rook Knits. I just finished it for last week's episode and I hadn't blocked it yet, but now I've blocked it and it's really loosened up a lot and laying really nicely. Hopefully I have a picture on the screen for you to see that. And then the next thing that I have is what I was really hoping I would finish on the trip, and I did. It's my Palmetto shawl by Pam Allen. So this shawl is actually supposed to be double the length for the border and then completely backfilled in as a nice wide shawl with probably, can I lean back? These sorts of dimensions. But I got bored and I wanted to do different projects that I was more excited about. So I bound off the border and then I started backfilling in at a much shallower angle to go across. And this has made for a pretty nice little neck scarf here. It's really not very big, but little scarves are in, so I have no idea how this looks. I don't have a mirror or anything, but I'm thinking it's great as what it is. Also, I have not blocked this yet, so once I block it, it'll look, how it's supposed to, and I'll share it then. But I was really dreading finishing this project. I had it on my needles for like 2 years, just waiting to finish it, and I couldn't, and I went back and forth about was I going to just stop it and do what I did here and make a much smaller little shawl scarf. I brought this on the trip thinking like maybe I'd get it done. And in actuality, doing all of the short rows across to fill in, it took me, I'm doing the math of like, it took me basically 4 hours in a car ride to Portland. So not long at all. Really, really short amount of time for how long I spent dreading actually doing it. So I'm really pleased that this is done. The next step for blocking is just that I need blocking wires because of all of the points on the lace stitch, and I don't have enough T-pins, and it would be a lot of them. Until I block it, at least it's done and it's off the needles. Oh, I wonder if it would make a good little decorative head thing. Probably not. I can't see this, but I'm sure it's not great. Okay. Palmetto shawl, more or less done. I'm calling it done until I get blocking wires. So the next thing that I finished is my second weekend hat by Petite Knit, and I'm gonna call this the weekend hat-ish because I definitely wasn't looking at the pattern when I did the decreases, so there's something like a little wonky in there from the pattern. It's a little different. And then I only did one fold over instead of the double fold over. But here it is, and I'm pretty happy with how the color turned out because I did a double holding mohair thing to like dull the blue a little bit to make it a more wearable color for me. And I'm pleased with it. Of course, today is the first like day where it feels like real spring. It's like 60 degrees out today and sunny, so my time left to wear this hat is quickly running out, but really nice to have it, and I'll absolutely wear it next year or for the last week or two that it's cold enough for it. Now, as some of you know, I was really looking forward to going to Portland because I get to go to a yarn shop that is there and just see things that are different from what I normally have at my local yarn shop. So, acquisitions! I went to Knitwit, which is a cute little local yarn store in Portland, Maine. It's right downtown, pretty easy to get to. They have quite a bit of Barocco and Quince & Co., but they carry other brands as well, and it was really nice to just get my hands on some different textures or things that I'd been hearing about and see what they were actually like. So the first thing that I grabbed, because I'm going to be working on my outline tee and or the azalea top, was some fingering weight linen yarn. So this yarn is Quince & Co. Sparrow. It's 100% linen. It's a fingering weight yarn, and then this is in the colorway Pigeon, which I think is really lovely. Hopefully that's coming into focus for you. It's kind of like a periwinkle, but much more muted and deeper, darker. So I've gotten quite a few skeins of this to get me through either the outline tee or the azalea top. I really haven't decided yet. I think this is going to be a really nice color for me to wear, and it's funny, it's feeling really colorful to me because there's any pigment to it. Basically, for the longest time, I would only wear black, and now that I'm out of my only wearing black phase, I wear a lot of like neutrals and grays. And as you saw with my weekend hat, I even had to dull this down from its very icy gray blue to an even grayer blue. So I'm really looking forward to using this yarn. I think it's beautiful. I love this color. And in picking whether or not I'm going to do the outline tee in it or the azalea top, I guess I'm thinking that the azalea top is a little bit more feminine in its shape, and I mean, it has lace on it. It's a lace sort of A-line skirted style cami. It's very feminine in its nature, and this color to me or using any color is gonna feel a little bit more on that feminine side. But I also like the idea of doing the outline tee in this color. So I'm not sure which is gonna be allocated to this yet, but I have a little bit of time to get it done. Okay, so when I went to Knitwit, I went with my boyfriend and we were looking at yarn together and we spied these and he said, oh, I really like those colors. And he's been after me to make him some fingerless mittens for a while and asked if I could maybe make him fingerless mittens out of these. So really cool yarn, let me share with you real quick. So it's Manos del Uruguay Fino. It's an extra fine merino and silk. So Manos del Uruguay, or the Hands of Uruguay, is a non-profit organization which assembles women in cooperatives scattered throughout the countryside of Uruguay. The aim of the organization is to bring economic and social opportunities to rural women, and this company is a proud member of the World Fair Trade Organization. So I think that that's lovely to hear, and I'm absolutely happy to celebrate and support that. And then on top of it, super cute colors. So he would like me to make him some fingerless mittens, and I'm thinking that I'm going to do sort of a like ombre effect through these colors. But the thing that I'm wondering about is how I'm going to incorporate them all together. Basically, I could make a really natural transition here. I feel like even without this bright one, these could all work really smoothly together, but then we've got this bright blue. So, or it's really like a seafoamy green color. But I think what I'm gonna do is knit like a chunk, a couple of rows with just this, and then alternate one and one and one and one, and then just a chunk of this, and then one and one and one and one, and then just a chunk of this, and sort of gradiate up through the fingerless mittens for him. But either way, I'm really excited to work with this yarn. It's very soft. It is a single ply merino, so I'm anticipating that it's going to pill at least a bit, and especially for a fingerless mitten, which is kind of hard wearing, but I also don't mind taking care of them for him, and I think he's just excited about it, and he's knit worthy and totally deserves them. So that's going to be a project I'll make. I'll probably work on them between now and Christmas time and give them at Christmas, because I don't think I'll get them just completely done anytime soon. But maybe, who knows? I seem to be very loosey-goosey on my plans. So anyways, this was the second bit of yarn that I got from Knitwit. And then my next acquisition is actually a little bit of art from the trade show that I was at. There was an artist there named Kim Ferreria. I believe I'm saying that right. She's an artist and illustrator out of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Her handle on Instagram is impossible_things_before_breakfast. So impossible things before breakfast, but with underscores. And hopefully you can see that there. Here's her little business card. All right, so I had to get these cards because, well, you'll see. So we have a little knitting raccoon, and then a knitting ermine or weasel, a bear, little bunny, and beaver. Side note, beavers are like my favorite animal. So I saw this one first and was just so excited. And I thought they were really cute, and my intentions are actually going to be to frame these because I want to. And it's such a sweet little like memory of going on the trip, and also knitting art is really cool. The artist, Kim, she said that she doesn't knit herself, but that her grandmother did, and I think that that's just like a really lovely way to recognize her. through art, and I really appreciate that as well. One of the reasons that I love knitting and fiber arts is the way that it connects different generations, not just like, grandmother and grandchild, but through the ages. You know, my great, 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 and many, 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 many other greats ancestry knit for sure. And that's just so cool to me that we're all kind of connected through this craft, and my hands have done what their hands have done. So anyway, really excited about these. I'm gonna frame them and probably put them right into my crafting studio room. So the next project that I'm starting to work on is a knit-along. Actually, it's my very first knit-along, and I'm so pleased to be a part of it. I've been finding a lot of knitting community through YouTube and Discord lately, and I love it. Very cool. So my next project is a knit-along for the Quilty Cabin socks, and I'm not going to share too much about it right now because I'll definitely cover plenty about it next episode, because the official cast on date is the 22nd and today's the 19th for context. But I did start my gauge swatch. I haven't knit on US 1 or 2.25 millimeter needles in quite a while. I've been doing a lot of chunky knitting, so even just this gauge swatch, I was like, oh, tiny. And I think my other project that I'll be doing between this sock pattern is my heirloom quilt cardigan. So while that's double held fingering, it's what, DK weight, it's still fairly fine for what I prefer to work in. I love working in a worsted weight. It's just easy on my hands, but this is going to be tedious for me, where now the quilt cardigan is going to feel like easy. So hopefully between the socks and the cardigan, those are going to be my two main projects for a little while. Although I also really want to get started on the linen tops. Who needs rules about these things? I feel like I'm spending so much time knitting lately that I'm gonna get through these projects and I'm committed to it, and I'm just not worried about it, I guess. But rather just excited to spend time knitting. And I think I'm a bit more of a process knitter rather than finished results or the end product. So for me, I don't think it really matters if I get a project done or not right on time, or if I start a new one. Knitting to me is definitely a lot of my therapy and peaceful, relaxing time. So as long as I'm doing it, maybe all the other rules should go out the window. But regardless, I'm going to be a part of this knit along, and it's kicking off on the 22nd, which is, I believe, the day that this video comes out. So I'm excited, and I'm pleased with my gauge, how everything's turning out. I think these are going to be a fantastic pair of socks, and I could use a hand knit thin pair. What's funny is I've actually, I don't think I've ever knit a sock from a pattern before. I've used a lot of YouTube videos of okay, how do I make a toe, and then how do I do the heel, but I kind of have just made it up myself, and within doing that I use heavier yarns as well. So I have plenty of chunky weight socks that I've made for myself or my family. I've done at least 20 pairs of socks, but they're all heavier and they're all kind of made up. So following a pattern, I think, is going to be great to learn a lot. All right. More to come about this pattern and the knit along later. Okay, on to Moth Folk Studio news, and specifically the trade show that I just came back from. So first off, just the quick version is that I'm so happy I went. It was a really good experience, and I'm incredibly thankful to everybody who helped get me there. Again, I did use a Kickstarter to raise funds to get there. Everyone who supported that, shared it, encouraged me to do it. It means so much, and I would not have been there without you. So thank you. And On my Instagram, I put out a little question in my stories about like, hey, what would you like to hear about the trade show? And one person asked me to just walk through what we did. So I'll just start there, and then we'll go into some of the other questions and what I learned and some of the takeaways. Okay, so today filming is Wednesday, and we left Friday and came back Monday. So yesterday was just like I sat on the couch and knit and took a day to rest because it was a very long weekend. That's also probably why I'm a little bit more chaotic today, is just catching up, being home and resting and like not having to be on so much. So we left on Friday from Vermont to get over to Portland, Maine. The drive was about 4 hours and we got there at like midday. The whole show is held at a sports complex, so it was basically like an indoor soccer field. And we went in, everything was already set up as far as like our booth locations go, and it was something called pipe and drape. So it's aluminum pipes as like a framework, and then all the booths had like a beige drape of fabric in between. And that set up like, hey, this is your spot. We were on AstroTurf, and we went in and it was just kind of crazy. Everybody was in there trying to set up, lots of people, you know, building displays, carting in their product, getting everything well lit. And we had quite a project to do as far as setting up the backdrop goes, because remember I had all of those modular pieces of these trees to hang and zip tie together. So we all worked together and got that hung up. That was the first step. And then we hung these sort of like sheer curtains with lights behind them and started to display the product. Setup was much longer than I thought it was going to be, but that's a mistake I make a lot, where I think, oh, easy, it'll be an hour, and then it's 4 hours. So we got kicked out right at 5 when setup had ended, and there was just a tiny bit more to do to like arrange the product. But the backdrop was totally ready to go. Lights were all set. I'd made reservations for restaurants every night that we were there, and that plan quickly went out the window because it was so exhausting. I could not go out every night. So we ended up canceling the reservation and staying in. We just ordered some like noodles from a nearby place and had them delivered, and ate them and pretty much went to bed. It was a long day of driving, set up, and then getting to our Airbnb, and I was just done by the end of the night. So we went to bed, got some good rest. Oh, by the way, I went with my partner, and then my parents came along. My dad was very integral in like helping get the backdrop set up and in place. You know, he's the guy who's got the tools. And then my mom came. She was sort of my on-hand second person at the market every day, which was great, just to have another person to cover when I had to run to the bathroom, or if 2 people came up at once, she could talk to the one set while I talked to the other. And she also has a lot of experience with doing trade shows, from the like setting up and then she also has a lot of experience with trade shows in general, so she was a great resource to have. But they also brought their 3 beagles with them because they come everywhere, and we had to get an Airbnb that was dog friendly, so that was kind of an extra layer of chaos and sort of fun for the weekend. Forgive me, by the way, my voice was shot after this weekend, and just even in filming this, I can feel it and hear it going again, so don't worry if I suddenly sound very gravelly. Saturday, we basically just like woke up, had breakfast, made our way over to the show, and we were on site from 10 till 4 were the show hours, at which point buyers came in and just kind of made their rounds to all of the booths. Everybody had a name tag that sort of said what their store was and where they were coming from. So my way of introducing myself or getting a conversation going was just to say hi. And, you know, I'd read that their store was a bookshop, for example, and I'd say, oh, tell me about your bookshop. Do you carry cards? And then launch into sharing about my cards. It wasn't as hard as I thought it would be to launch into sort of the sales pitch of it. And part of that is because most of the people who were there were buyers who were ready to be pitched to. So it kind of came more naturally than I thought it would. And I got a lot of really great contacts through the experience. I would say I'll give some context of numbers just for other folks who might be watching, considering if they would like to do a wholesale show as well. So at this particular one, I think I left with about 40 to 50 contacts that I feel pretty good about. And that was either through taking a business card or just chatting with them, writing down some information, their feedback for me. And for the 3 days, I would say that that's pretty good, especially for the level of growth that I feel like I can take on right now. More than that would have been cool, but potentially overwhelming. So, but even beyond that, I'm really not looking at it as a quantity thing. I would say the quality of the connections that I made were really solid. I really liked all the people that I talked to. I think that they cared about the work that I offer and what it is that I'm doing, and that felt pretty cool. So yeah, there were just a lot of really good connections. I enjoyed talking to people about their stores, and it was great too because a lot of the folks who knew that my product wasn't right for their shop, they told me, and I said, that's totally fine. I'm glad that you really know your customer. And in the reverse of that, I know mine a little bit better. So it was a pretty cool show. I have a lot of experience with doing retail, like farmers markets or holiday markets, and sharing my work, talking about it, being on in that way. But for wholesale or working with buyers of a store, that was new and not too different, to be honest. So Friday was set up, Saturday was the first day of the market, and then we did go out to dinner on Saturday night because I love going to Izakaya Minato, which is a Japanese restaurant in Portland, and it's so good. I love it. It's not Japanese food in the way of just like sushi and sashimi, but more of a warm, rustic, kind of snowy mountain type of an experience. It's really, really, really good. One of my favorite things that they do is they have like an uni spoon, so it's urchin and a quail egg in it. They also have this cabbage pancake that has bacon on top of it, and I'm not usually a big bacon person, but it's just delicious. Oh gosh, I've got to stop thinking about that meal, otherwise I'm going to drool everywhere. Highly recommend that as an option. And then we went out to an arcade place, did some pinball. I played skee ball, which is one of my favorite, I guess, arcade things to do. I'm not a big arcade person, but when I go, I do really like to play skee ball. And then at that point, I was really, really tired, so we just went home. I crashed, went to sleep, woke up in the morning for day 2 of the show, which was basically the same as Saturday. Just a lot of folks walking by the booth. I would try to grab them, engage them, share with them about my work. And that went on until the evening when we got really tired again and went home. And again, we were supposed to go out to dinner that night, and I just couldn't, so we ordered in some Thai food. I think the Thai food restaurant was called Boda, which I really enjoyed my meal quite a lot. Everybody else who was with us, I don't think was as jazzed about it, but I've had like shrimp skewers that were done on a grill, and they had a really nice amount of char, so I liked those. So that was Sunday, and then we went to sleep to wake up for Monday, which was the final day, plus pack out, plus driving home. So the show on Monday ran from 9 to 4, and then pack out started right at 4 o'clock, which was just a crazy, everybody collapsing and trying to get out, and there was this whole like parking scenario to happen. But we made it through. So Monday was definitely the busiest day. We had quite a few visitors, quite a few contacts made. I met some really cool people, potentially a new printer for my cards, which more on later, but it felt really good to be there. And at 4 o'clock, we started our pack out process. At that point, Mom and Dad had left, so it was just my boyfriend and I who were there to do it together. And I'm really pleased to say that we did a good job together in the very stressful pack out situation. The worst thing that happened is that as we were taking down all of the panels, I got past one and I got a handful of slivers. I got like 3 massive shards of plywood just like buried in my hand, and so I had to do a little bit of like surgery to get those out, but no real damage. They're totally fine now. And then I sort of pinched my hand in the crates. Remarkably, we were packed up and loaded by like 5:30, which was really good. And then we got on the road, we stopped and got a chicken sandwich, which was so needed. I was very drained at this point, like dazed. And we had a chicken sandwich and got on the road. My boyfriend Keegan, he drove us home, and I'm just really grateful that he was there to drive me home, because I would not have been able to drive myself home after all of that craziness of the weekend. And we got back around like 10 at night, basically made ourselves a quick little snack and passed out. Yesterday was just a big rest day, and then here we are today. So that's sort of like everything that happened. And if you have specific questions about anything, please put them in the comments. I'd be happy to hear more like feedback or questions and go into it more, because it's such a cool experience that I don't think everybody necessarily like has had, but a lot of people think about doing it, especially in the artist community. So yeah, let me know what you'd like to know, and I will share more in the next episode. Okay, if I'm being very honest, I'm so tired and I don't have a lot of energy left to share and talk about things in this session, but I'm serious that I would like to talk about it more, especially with some like guidance or direction of where to go. But I will wrap up with saying that going to the show was a really good experience. I am still deciding like, hey, would I do it again? And I would, in the sense of, was it worth going this first time? Absolutely. Do I want to go a second time? I think yes, but I want to learn more from some of my fellow vendors who've been there a few times, and I haven't quite decided on that yet. But going was really cool because I got to learn more about my customer, which is something that when you're running a business, you hear a lot about, like, who is your audience? What do they need? What is the solution that you're providing to them to be interested in buying from you? Because at the crux of what a business is, it's that. Especially one that's product-based that I'm trying to live off of. So getting to know what people really want to carry in their stores, that they'll place orders, is invaluable. And one thing that I heard from a lot of folks was that the work that I'm making is unique and they haven't seen it before, which is really encouraging because I'm making it from my heart and from who I am and my experiences. So to know that it's seen as something that is individual to me as a creator versus something that looks really cookie cutter feels good to my artistic expression. And then the other thing I was hearing is that people are really wanting to move towards more eco-friendly options, which I absolutely want to as well, and have wanted to for a while. To be really clear about it, there's a lot of cost challenges along the way with getting things printed in like an eco-friendly way, or having your own personal setup to print in an eco-friendly way. And then from there, packaging responsibly into like a compostable sleeve versus just a plastic sleeve. It all comes down to cost and experience, which when you're starting a business, you might not have the funds and you might not have the experience. But I'm really happy to say that at this point in my business and my career, I'm ready to start making those big changes with my production so that I can have a more eco-conscious output. And in hearing that a lot of customers were looking for that as well, reaffirmed that that is one of the directions that I'm going to go in and prioritize. So that felt great. I sort of think about all of my options with my business as, branches of a tree. I think there's so many things in life that come down to that metaphor of branches, but deciding which branches to take can often be the hardest part of life. And I feel like going to this show sent me down that branch and was like, that's the one to go down. Let's learn what branches off from there. So that was a really valuable thing about this show, and I'm really happy that I have that sense of direction now. Also, in a similar sense of direction kind of thing, I am thinking a lot about what is it that I want to draw and create, and what is the message that I'm sharing with my art. And I realized that a lot of what I do are collections of multiple drawings that go together. And what are those collections? What are those drawings of, and what do they mean? And I sort of, for the first time for this weekend, for whatever reason, saw, each collection is something that's like integral to who I am. So the Hero's Journey collection is all about like a love of mythology and storytelling and the traditions that come with those two things. And then my Celestial Fauna series is all about Vermont critters and landscape and the way that we are a part of this kind of divine natural world and our place in it, and to honor the landscape. So I was thinking about, okay, what are my next collections? What are the next things that are really, really special and important to me, and what do I want to highlight as a little mini body of work? And I think that the next two are going to be one about gardening or cultivation to some extent, because I just have a lot of love for plants and growing plants and learning a lot about oneself and nurturing through plant cultivation. So gardening is sort of the overarching theme for the next collection. And then also handcrafts, which obviously I love knitting, but I really like sewing and basketry and woodworking and all of these kind of handcrafts that get passed down through the ages. So I think those are going to be my next two collections, but we'll see exactly how that shakes out. And that just gave me more direction again, as far as, okay, what am I going to do next, and how am I going to organize this so that I'm making new work, but sort of reinforcing the work that I already have and moving forward. And yeah, it was a really good show. It really made me think about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and that was important for my experience. So my intentions that I set in last week's episode were to go and have a sincerely good time and show up and be genuine and myself, and I think I did that. I felt really good about being there, and I think that being willing to just show up and be myself was probably what helped me connect with so many people. And hopefully I can just continue to do it, and my wholesale presence will grow alongside every other kind of retail that I'm doing for myself. And I'm still kind of coming down from the experience and processing everything that I learned and everything I got out of it. But there's so much to talk about. I know one one person had asked that I share kind of a breakdown of like what's the cost involved in going to one of these shows and the specific advice that I would give, which I do want to cover, but I'm thinking in this episode, or at least right now with my voice, I'm gonna have to take a little bit of a break. That's pretty much all I have to share today. There will be more to come, more that I'm processing and offering in the future, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching and listening, because all of this means a lot to me, and I hope that it's valuable to you as well. And if there's something that you think you could get out of it more, again, leave a comment, because as I've said before, I'm doing something that's a little bit unconventional in being a working artist, and it's not something that's encouraged in our culture or explained very well. There aren't a lot of resources, and I'm no expert. I've sort of bumped my way along, but I have a lot of experience in the path that I've taken, and I'm very open to talking about it. I don't think that somebody should take the exact path that I have or follow my exact advice, but I am of the belief that the more information that you have to guide you along that path of where to go or where not to go is going to be of benefit. So please feel free to use me as a resource for that. And I hope that your growth, whether it's to start a business or just your own personal artistic expression or your crafting journey, or I don't know, maybe this applies to bigger things or different challenges or changes or growth that you're doing. I don't know, but I do encourage it and I support it, and I'm happy to help in the way that I can, which is sharing my experience and answering questions. So feel free to leave a comment, like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram. It's at Moth Folk Studio or mothfolkstudio.com. And I hope to see you next time. Thanks for coming.